Talk shoes.
Recorded live.
Hi, this is Margo. Welcome to Campfire Chats with Margo. And this is our first show, episode number 1. And it's August 31st, 2017. And it's 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And we've got the chat room open, and if people want to call in, they call in on their regular phone. The call-in number is 724-444-7444. And then when you call in, it'll ask for the call ID, and the call ID number is 144865, and then you push the pound key. And you'll join us, and I can, if you want to talk or you got questions, what's on your mind, and we're live on the air. And this is being recorded, and it will be archived here on TalkShoe, and I will also upload it to my YouTube channel. But if you don't want to call in, if you just want to join on the computer, that's fine too. And I've got a live chat room, and you can ask questions there. So this is Campfire Chats with Margo. I have a guest already in the chat room. He's one of my YouTube subscribers, and I'm glad that he's here. We'll wait for an audience to come. But this show is going to be, the series is going to be, I'm calling it kind of a support group for people who have awakened. I was talking online the other night and saying I'm really preaching to the choir here, because these are all issues that people have already awakened to, like abrupt climate change, how dire the world situation is in, and also that there is a spiritual component to everything that's happening here. And a lot of people who have been talking about this stuff have grown weary, they've grown tired, and they've just stopped. They've stopped doing interviews, and they don't want to talk anymore because they say, I've already said everything, and I don't have anything else to say. And they're tired, and they don't want to keep repeating it over and over and over again, because they say, well, nobody gets it, nobody understands. And it's like, I realized that as time goes on, and as we get closer and closer to the end times, and things get more and more chaotic, we need a place to be able to talk about these things. We need a safe place where we can talk, and where we can, exchange our feelings, talk about how we're feeling, talk about what's going on, and prop each other up. And I said, even the choir needs to be supported. Even though I'm preaching to the choir, so to speak, the choir needs to be supported too, because everybody's tired, everybody's worn out, and now with Harvey and all the stuff going on in Texas, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of the dominoes falling, I believe. And everything has been set up. It's ready to go, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy from all different fronts. And I'm going to start the show tonight. I'm going to read Richard Souter's last blog post. He posted one on August 26th. And I'm going to open the show with that, and then we can lead off from that, and then we can talk about other issues. If you have questions, you can type them into the chat room, or if you want to call in, you can do that too. So I look forward to having people call in or join us in the chat room, and we'll just go from there. Now, I've interviewed Richard Souter several times, and if people don't know who he is, he's a PhD, and he's written 4 books. His specialty is research into deep underground bases, underwater bases, mind control by the government, and uncovering things that the government is doing that we're not aware of. He lives in Ecuador now. He was born in Virginia, and he's been in Ecuador for several years, and he has a blog at eventhorizonChronicle.blogspot.com. I will put the link in the chat room, and anybody who wants to go to his blog while I'm reading this can follow along. And I like the way he does his commentary. He brings things together from a huge perspective and puts lots of dots together. And so I think this is a good post to start with. It's quite short, and we can go from there. And the title of his post is Red, White, and Blue Musterfluck. And he says, well, you can see it all starting to come into focus. The artificially created social divisions and societal chaos in many countries simultaneously. The ongoing coordinated takedown of the United States brick-and-mortar economy and that of most of the rest of the world. The accelerating global biological extinction event. The steady drumbeat for conflict and war against North Korea, against Iran, against Venezuela, against China, against Russia in Afghanistan, and on and on. The artificial political crisis that the deep state has produced in the United States and many other countries. The ever-present threat of massive natural disasters, such as the huge flooding event now getting underway in Texas due to the days of heavy rainfall that Hurricane, Tropical Storm, Tropical Depression Harvey will unleash over the next week and possibly even longer. The increasingly deadlier radioactive contamination of the biosphere due to Fukushima, Chernobyl, decades of nuclear weapons testing, depleted uranium weapons, battlefield use, nuclear power plants, nuclear waste dumps, and nuclear storage sites, etc. The declining sustainability of modern urban areas as teeming cities become more crime-ridden, unemployment rises, living standards decline, and environmental contamination builds up. Rapidly increasing failure of natural ecosystems as great forests are cut down and seas are polluted and choked with waste of every description. Decline of basic reasoning, analytical and practical life and social skills as vast hordes of people the world over increasingly turn to their personal digital devices for, well, everything in lieu of thinking for themselves, interacting with actual live human beings, or engaging in tangible real-world activities. The net result is a less human world and living environment as the human race willingly embraces the artificial, transhumanist, slippery slope down which it is now plunging headlong. I'm going to pause right there. I've had some more people join me. Hi, Valhalla. I'm happy to have you here. How are you tonight? And hello, guest 4. I'm reading from Richard Souter's blog post from August 26th. So this is just setting the stage, and then we can talk about things that are going on. Oh, okay, Peter, that's fine. I know, I love Richard too. He's just really not interested in doing any more interviews. I've so tried to talk him into it, but he said he's tired. And like I was saying at the beginning of the show, I'm kind of a latecomer to trying to get out there with my message and talk to people and stuff. I'm kind of a latecomer to the scene. But the good part about that is I can kind of pick up the slack, and as these people drop off who are tired and don't want to talk anymore, I can pick up the slack and carry the ball. Okay, Valhalla, you say you have something to say about Ecuador. Let me finish reading this post, and then we'll get into discussion, okay? It's a quite short post. Okay, so I'm continuing with the post. The burgeoning use and practice of gene editing, microchipping, genetic modification, transsexual alteration, pharmaceutical substance use and misuse of every variety, social and behavior engineering and modification, and more. You get the idea. We are all awash in the insanity and, frankly, demonic grossness of these things. It is becoming more and more difficult to be a normal human being. And that is the intention, my friends, to deride, diminish, and destroy the normal, natural human and replace him or her with monstrosities, with freaks, to marginalize, criminalize, or even make impossible life as a normal human being. This is a multi-front assault against sane, normal, healthy humanity by wicked, evil, demonically dark forces. We must see it for what it is. And he says, back to the Deagle.com numbers again. He says, I know I've mentioned the Deagle.com website before in previous blog posts, but given Deagle's evident ties to the global military-industrial and alphabet soup agency complex, the near-future population levels as presented on their website for all the world's countries are of special interest. Notably, many of the world's countries are predicted to suffer massive depopulation by 2025, which means that the precipitous population loss could conceivably even happen later this year, or next year, or in 2019. That is what an objective reading of the Deagle numbers suggests. According to Deagle, by 2025, the United States will lose 83% of its population, down from 324 million people to just 54 million. Only massive economic collapse, nuclear war, catastrophic failure of the national power grid, apocalyptic natural disasters, runaway infectious plague, and similar events can cause such a massive loss of life in such a short period of time. In brief, Deagle.com sees huge civilization and life-ending events just ahead for the United States. But not only for the United States, many countries in Europe, the Middle East, and East Asia will also face dramatic loss of life in the next several years, according to Deagle.com. France, Israel, Turkey, the Ukraine, Germany, Spain, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Japan, Portugal, Ireland, Italy, and others will lose many millions of people in the coming years, according to Deagle.com. These aren't my numbers, but I am paying careful attention to them because of Deagle.com's obvious ties to global forces and agencies in the know. Notice that North Korea is listed in the 2016 roster of countries at number 99, but in the 2025 listing, North Korea is conspicuously absent. It is entirely gone from the list. North Korea is not the only one. In 2016, Deagle.com lists 209 countries. The roster of countries is reduced to just 183 on the 2025 list. North Korea is one of the missing countries, as are Gibraltar, San Marino, Bermuda, Jersey, Guernsey, Isle of Man, American Samoa, and some others. One possible interpretation of these country population numbers is that Deagle.com has caught wind of a major planned upcoming war in which North Korea will be completely wiped out, as will more than 80% of the United States, a very big chunk of Europe, most of Israel, and some other parts of the Middle East, including serious damage to Western Pacific nations such as Australia and various small banking centers, as well as small Anglo-American power centers such as Gibraltar and Bermuda. Deagle.com foresees that Russia and China will emerge virtually unscathed for whatever is projected to occur, as will most of Africa and Latin America, with the exception of Puerto Rico, which will be hammered very hard. Look at their numbers and make of them what you will, but I believe that a scenario like that is very likely what they are contemplating. And truthfully, look at the world headlines soberly and see the direction that global events are trending. It appears that Deagle.com have, and they have reached a stark conclusion. The days of global hegemony of the United States and its vassal states are numbered. It is all about to come to an abrupt, lethal, mass mortality halt. Or so the people at Deagle.com think. We shall see, one way or the other, in the relatively near term. But one thing is abundantly clear. Things cannot continue on much longer as they are without major global change, for better or for worse. Massive change lies just ahead. It is absolutely baked in the cake at this point. Major global events are in motion, and they will certainly run their course. Of that you can be sure. And that's the end of his article. I'm going to click back over to the chat room and see what y'all are saying. Well, let's start with one thing at a time. Valhalla, you were talking about Ecuador. You say Ecuador is on the right side of everything. We, Julian Assange, liberalism, all good. But you know, Ecuador is very connected to the United States, and they actually use United States currency down there. And so if the United States goes down, frankly, Ecuador is going to go down. When you're saying that they're top producers of beef, I didn't know that, but I know, they've got part of the Amazon rainforest there, and, it's It's being stripped away for different stuff. Right, and beef puts a lot of methane into the atmosphere. That's not good. That's just not good for global warming. Right. Valhalla, you say it's the top 3 in the world production of beef. I didn't know that. It must stink, because if they've got cattle farms all over the place, they stink. And it's a small country. It's not like they can spread out. Top 3 to top 5. I'm scrolling back up to see what else y'all said. Well, and also, Ecuador, they're on an earthquake zone. They have lots and lots of earthquakes. And there's a fault line that runs right in the Pacific Ocean on the west coast there of South America. And it's part of the Ring of Fire. So they're not out of the woods. And you say, why would Deagle.com publish this stuff? I asked Richard about this after I read the blog post. And my thought is that Deagle.com is part of the deep state and the Illuminati, and they're telling us what they have planned. Just like they use sci-fi movies to tell us what's going on. Yeah, Richard thinks he's going to be okay in Ecuador. He thinks that South America is going to pretty much be okay, and Africa. I don't know if it's just because he's living there, but I don't think anybody will be untouched. And, with climate change, the abrupt climate change, it's going to be bad everywhere. And if we've got, the methane bomb that goes off in the Arctic anytime soon, that'll just go all around the world, and that'll suck the oxygen. That'll suck the oxygen out of the atmosphere, and we'll be dead. Why would they put that on their website? I'm thinking because part of it is they have to tell what they're going to be doing. They have to, like the dark side, they have to tell us what they're going to be doing, so that when it happens, they can say, "Well, we warned you." It's not like you didn't know. Hello, guest 6. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us. I've got a little audience going here. And I'm going to go back up and read your comments. I don't know what the Isle of Man is. And apparently Russia is going to be untouched in China. Well, Russia and China could very well hook up together. Right, Valhalla. You say, perhaps regular people would never see it. I wouldn't have seen it unless Richard had mentioned it. And this is why I really like Richard's posts, and I'm going to keep bringing them to you guys, because he does put the dots together in ways that people wouldn't otherwise. But if you do a search on Deagle.com and find out who it makes up, it's really incredible who's made up in it. I'll show you. I'm going to do a search right now, and I'll say, who is Deagle.com? And you're going to be amazed. You'll be amazed. I'm clicking on a website. Deagle, a real intelligence organization for the U.S. government, predicts massive global depopulation, 50 to 80% by 2025. Okay, here's a partial list of Deagle partners and clients according to their website, and they pull their information from databases and economic information too. But here's a partial list. National Security Agency, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OSCE, I don't know who that is, I'll have to look that up, Russian Defense Procurement Agency, Stratfor, the World Bank, United Nations. That's just a partial list. And I think I saw somewhere else where, like, the CIA and I don't know who else is in on it. It's just, you know, it's the big guys, it's the players. A military and aviation website. Okay, Deagle.com, Fellowship of the Minds. I'm clicking on that link. Military Guide website forecasts economic collapse and massive depopulation for U.S. by 2025. And it says Deagle.com is a military equipment and civil aviation guide website. So, you know, the equipment has to come from somewhere, and they have to estimate what kind of equipment they're going to be needing for what kind of wars they're going to be having, what kind of disasters, and, you know, stuff like that. So it's the deep state. That's what I think. I'm clicking on one more. Oh, Tom Clancy. Listen to this. This is another website from All News Pipeline. It says, biggest mystery on internet solved, Deagle.com completely exposed with Tom Clancy link. If you knew that military authors such as Tom Clancy used the mysterious website called Deagle.com, which was recently linked to the depopulation agenda in America, to gather information for their books, would it quickly become easier to prove Deagle's legitimacy as an agent with knowledge of future mass death in America? This linked story excerpted from Dave Hodges below tells us all we need to know about Deagle, with Deagle now saying their website was hacked, leading to the skewed population data in America. The video below from Professor Doom 1 provides answers to what he considers the biggest mystery on the internet right now and shows us proof Deagle is lying through their teeth while asking if Tom Clancy was murdered for what he might have uncovered at Deagle. Okay, the pot of oil is part of it, which was a CIA front corporation run by George H. Bush, which in turn facilitated much of the Air America Drugs for Guns program in Latin America, on and on. And the video has been taken off. So there you go. The video that it's related to has been removed, but I will put a link to that website in the chat room here. Okay, there's a link to that one. Hello, guest 8. Thank you for joining. I haven't heard any. I haven't heard Chip Tatum recently. I used to hear him some when I was listening to Waterman Files, but John Waterman hasn't been on regularly very much. But he was friends with Chip Tatum, and yeah, he had good information. I'm going to read back up. Valhalla, you ask when I think this is all going to go down. I think it's going to be soon. And I think Harvey is the beginning. I think Hurricane Harvey is the beginning of the end for the United States and for the civilized world as we know it. And there are also hurricanes and lots of flooding on the other side of the world over in India and Asia and everything. And I think that, we were just waiting for something really big. And frankly, I don't see how Houston will ever recover. I really don't. Because under that much water, 10 million people affected, I don't see how they're going to rebuild anything. And they've shut down all the oil refineries, but, a whole bunch of that oil has been leaking. Really, Peter, what was it like in India? You were in India for 11 months. What were you doing there? We'll get back to talking about Houston in a minute. I want to hear about Peter in India. Okay. 2014 to 2016. I'm jealous. I've always wanted to go to India. India's an interesting place. Oh, wow. You were in the holy place where Krishna had his birth. I don't know how you say that. Vrindavana. I always wanted to go do spiritual practice in India. I'm jealous that you got to go. But I did find a spiritual teacher when I was in Texas. Studying the Vedas. Yeah. How do you find those relate to Jesus? I don't know how they relate to Jesus, but I think and you say Srila Prabhupada started the Hare Krishna movement but was murdered by his Judas disciples with cadmium in 1977. Yes, I agree. Jesus is the Son of God. And I think, here's what I kind of think. I think these religions, they prepared us and gave us a compass. They give us a moral compass. And there's a certain, at a certain point, you have to leave it all behind and go within and find your own belief and find your own relationship with God. And that's what that's kind of my path and what I help people do. Because I think you can get locked into rituals and belief systems and things that the followers and other people actually made up, rules that they made up, like dogma and stuff that they made up that you had to follow, but it didn't have anything to do with the founder or the person who actually had the enlightenment experience. Right. You got to go beyond religion and get love of God. Yeah, I agree. And so that's what I embrace. And let's go back. Let's talk about okay. Well, I find this very interesting, Peter. And you were there 11 months. Right. You say once you get love of God, you automatically follow the rules like being pure, etc. You know, what I found is once you get that connection, you don't have to worry. I mean, you know what's right. Yeah, like you follow the rules. And it's just easier. Life becomes easier, but because you cut out all these other possibilities. Oh, you say the vibe there is totally different than the West. Right. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. We're so self-centered over here and egotistical. I would love to visit there. I don't think I could live there, but I would like to visit. I had a client from India. Let's get back to Hurricane Harvey. Valhalla, you said that most of the houses don't have flood insurance, and that means if your house flooded, you have a complete loss. Yes, and Peter, you say India is very harsh. 50 degrees centigrade. That's like, 100 degrees Fahrenheit or more? And there's, and that the white-bodied people can't handle it, right? Yeah, if you're not born there, it's like you haven't adapted. You haven't grown up in that environment, and you don't know how to live. Just like I was wanting to go. I was wanting to go to South America and to the high mountains. I'm having a brain fart. What's that country directly south of Peru? I was wanting to go there. It's like the mountains were like 14,000 feet tall, and I couldn't have breathed the air. If you grow up there, that's one thing. Yeah, highs of 123 degrees Fahrenheit. Back there where you were in Vernavana, and I imagine that it had high humidity too. Yeah, you just have to keep pouring water on yourself. Right. No AC. That's awful. That's awful. You know, I'm glad to be in the United States. I've got my air conditioner on right now. I had to turn it on because we had wildfires burning around and the smoke was coming in. It was only like 95 today, but yeah, it's a dry heat. But the smoke was coming in. I couldn't breathe. I've got really bad allergies. So I had to turn on my AC. Really, we don't know how good we have it in the United States. Valhalla, you're funny. You'd rather be in Disney World. Some people are in Disney World, their own Disney World that they're making up in their head, and they refuse to see what's going on. Right. America's more materialistic. India's more spiritual. Both places are kind of out of balance at the moment. You say, Peter goes on, most Indian people don't have clean food and water. And people just have no idea how bad and harsh it is out there. Yeah, and until you go, you don't know. And so, you know, I applaud you, Peter, for going and having that experience. You know, it gives you a new, a whole different look on life, a whole different appreciation. Valhalla says, we're all going to die. How good is that? Well, you know, I think there are things worse than death, frankly. Valhalla, you're funny. You say, America is like a bunch of drunks in a Hummer swerving around that mountain next to Lake Tahoe at 70 miles an hour. Oh, yeah. And how about when you're on the way on the highway, on that Mount Rose highway, and it's two lanes, right? 2-lane highway with a drop off going down the mountain as you're going up the mountain, and you've got cars, 10 cars lined up behind you, and some idiot decides he's going to pass everybody. You know, that's just crazy. Mount Rose, yeah. I love Mount Rose. Did you ever hike to the top of Mount Rose, Valhalla? I used to go hiking. I know all the trails. When I first moved here, the whole first year, all I did was hike Mount Rose. I love Mount Rose. You know, when I do my meditations with the Great One, I see myself going into the center of Mount Rose. Back in the early 80s. I moved here in 2005, so I guess we just missed each other. But yeah, when I see myself meeting with the Great One, the soul of Mother Earth, I'm in the center of Mount Rose is where I go, in a big chamber in the rock in my mind. Yeah, I think we're all going to die. If we're lucky. You know, we need to get out before all the robots come in. Because that's what they're wanting. I'm thinking they're wanting that transhumanist movement to get in while there's still enough humans to trap their souls and to trap them in it. Well, Peter, you'd say the soul is eternal, right? Right. So if we drop the bodysuit, it's no big deal. I'm ready. You know, frankly, I'm just so ready to go, I can't stand it. But I'd like to talk about, as we come into these end times and what's happening, the difference in perspective with people who have the viewpoint that the soul is eternal, and then the people who don't have that viewpoint, like the people, like atheists or agnostics. We really can't have a conversation on near-term human extinction and the death of the planet and everything without talking about spiritual stuff. We really can't. Because, if this is it, I mean, what's the point? If this one lifetime is it, and this is all we're going to do and all we're ever going to experience, what's the damn point? I don't get it. And I think it's the only thing that we can do is go into a spiritual space and try to go above and beyond this reality. Right. Peter, you say the goal is to transfer yourself to the spiritual world where birth and death no longer exist and we have perfect eternal relationship with God. Oh, Valhalla, you say that you think this is hell, and when we die, we are being released from this hell. I think this is a version of hell. I really do. And in visions that I've had, I've seen that we're moving into this fourth dimension, which is like really dark, and it's hellish. And we got to go through 4D to get to 5D. I'm sorry, Valhalla. And 4D is not good. It's a hellish place with demons and ghosts, earthbound spirits, the Middle Earth. Right. Peter, you say the Vedas say that Earth is a middle planet, but now the hellish realms are overlapping us somewhat. Yes, I agree. And what I've seen is that the veils have gotten really thin, and that these demons and things can just manifest here, and they can influence us. And they can influence our thoughts, they can influence our environment, and this is why I use spiritual warfare a lot, and why I teach my clients spiritual warfare, because this stuff is real. And if you start doing this binding and casting out, if you start doing it, it works. And you start saying some of those prayers that I put up in my spiritual warfare series, it works. And I haven't always been doing spiritual warfare. It was about four or 5 years ago when I started doing it, and I'll tell you how I got started in it. I used to not really be a Christian. I mean, I had Christian values, but I was very New Age, and I made fun of Christians a lot. And but here's how I found out that our words are important, and we can command the demons to leave. I remember I used to take road trips, just day trips out into the desert and stuff, and my best friend was with me on this one road trip, and we were going out to Lovelock, and Lovelock, Nevada, where the cave is. I've been there, by the way. And there was this dust devil. Off over the field, off to the right of the highway. And if people don't know what a dust devil is, it's like a little mini tornado. It's a vortex cloud, and it just goes all over, and touches on the ground, and it looks like a little mini tornado, and it's just dirt. And so I was like just joking around, and I said, look at that dust devil. And why is it called a dust devil? It means that there's a devil in it. And so I jokingly said, get thee behind me, Satan. Get thee behind me, Satan. I command you to leave. And I mean instantly, that dust devil, it broke up. It just dissipated. I know, Peter. You said a dust devil might actually be a living, subtle entity, Right, and I think it is, and I think it's expressing itself, and I was amazed, and I didn't believe it, and so then we're driving down the road, and a few minutes later another dust devil comes along, and I said, oh look, here's another one. Let's see if it works again, and I said, get thee behind me, Satan! I command you to leave, and it broke up too. But on the ones that I didn't say it, it just kept going round and round and round. So that's how I got started, because I had enough proof with that. But then I started listening to Christian radio shows and stuff, because I realized that we're living in a demonic realm. We're living in a very dark realm, and it's expressing here, and we have to be able to take care of ourselves. I'm going to read the comments here. Peter says, there was one demon named Trinavarta. He took the form of a whirlwind to try to kill Krishna when Krishna was a baby, but Krishna killed this tornado demon. So it is described that these demons can change themselves to all manner of things. It's mind-boggling. Wow. That's interesting. And then you say, most of the demons that tried to kill Krishna were shapeshifters and appeared in all kinds of strange and huge forms, and that they were magicians. I believe that. I believe that, Peter. I've seen that in the work I do, with implant removal and energetic healing with people. I see stuff attached to people all the time, and they're put under spells, they're put under curses. It can be from relationships. It can be sometimes they made an agreement with somebody, and that thing just connects. Okay, Valhalla, you have a question. I'm ready. But yeah, those things can just connect and they hang on. Okay. You said, okay, Valhalla, you say you used to work at a private mental hospital in Sparks, Nevada. Is it still there? Are you talking about the state hospital on Galletti Way? Are you talking about that? It's not private. It's the state hospital, but there is a mental hospital here. Well, I don't know. I could look it up. If I had the name. You said it's a private hospital, not the state hospital. We could do a Google search if we had the name of it. But I don't know about a private hospital. Oh, I nearly went to work at the mental hospital. I was offered a job there, working as a secretary, and I turned it down. Because after the interview, I went home and I felt I was messed up. I was messed up, definitely. I think we've all had some strange experiences. Anyone who's sensitive and open has, I think, have had strange experiences. What's ecolia? Valhalla is typing in his experiences. Oh, that sounds like Alzheimer's to me, where it's repeating the same thing over and over, ecolalia. Yeah, that sounds... I've worked with Alzheimer's people, and that's kind of the same thing. The brain stays in a loop, and it can't get out of it. So what did you do at the mental hospital, Valhalla? What was your role? Yeah, mental hospitals are creepy. Lots of entities. Psychiatric technician working with troubled teens. I'll bet that was tough. I don't think I could do that. You know, I found, did you find that a lot of those people were psychic though? And the reason is because the veils are thin or lifted for them. And a lot of times they might have had an experience where it blew them open psychically and even damaged their chakras so that they could see into the other realms. You enjoyed it because you were about their age. You were a little older. Yeah, well, you know, when you're young, that's different. But you didn't find that the teens were psychic. I've had some good friends who were, who had some pretty bad mental illnesses. But, it's a fine line. And what do you call mentally ill? I think most of the world is mentally ill, and we're the ones who are sane. Because, we're being fed a bunch of lies. We're being fed a bunch of lies and delusions, and to believe it, is just to buy into the mental illness. I lived in a haunted house. Do y'all want to hear that story? When I lived in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Valhalla says that the teens weren't mentally ill, that they had behavior problems, and there was nothing wrong with them, and that there was the corporation making money off of them. Yeah, that's too bad. Well, at least you were there to help them. Okay, I've had a request to talk about the haunted house. This is a fun story. I lived in Scranton, Pennsylvania for about 4.5 years. I moved there for a guy I met on the internet. I'll never do that again. So one of the places that I lived was this old Victorian house, and it was 2 stories plus an attic plus a basement. And it was very large, and it had been divided up into 4 apartments. And when I went to see the house, the owner was showing me around and everything. And he said, well, what do you do? And And I said, well, I'm a legal secretary by day, and I do hypnosis by night, and, I'm a hypnotist. And he said, oh, well, you'll fit right in with being a hypnotist. He goes, because we've got a ghost here. And I said, oh, really? And he goes, oh, yeah. He said his name is Jacob. And apparently the owner had seen the ghost. He had manifested to the owner, and he had manifested to a few other people. And he said that when he had seen him, he was just doing work on the stairway or something, and then he saw the ghost standing at the top of the stairs, and he walked through the wall and disappeared. He called him Jacob. His real name was Alexander Reese, and anyway, we're not sure exactly how Alexander died or Jacob died, but he died quite young, and this was his family's house, and he was hanging around kind of to protect it. So I said, okay, no big deal. And, I had already dealt with ETs and been abducted and, had worked with UFO abductees and had my UFO abductee contact group, and when I was living in Colorado and all this stuff. And, I'd done a lot. I'd been channeling angels and guides and stuff like that. And so I thought, okay, ghost, that's just the next step. So we moved in, me and my cat, Captain Kirk, and we moved in. And right after we moved in, before I got all unpacked, I would hear a crash, like in the living room. I'd be in the bedroom and I heard a crash, like a box falling over or something. And I'd go in and nothing was out of order. And then I didn't know if the ghost was there or not. And I had a Gauss meter, and it measures electromagnetic frequencies, and that's one of the tools that Ghostbusters actually use, because you can actually test the energy of the air, and if a ghost is there or an entity is there, it actually makes the meter go up. And so this one night, I was sensing that the ghost might be there, and so I was in the living room, and my cat was asleep on the futon, and I had the Gauss meter, and I was walking around, getting readings and trying to get a reading, and I went right over my cat, and it went way up, and it was like, oh, is this Jacob? And then it went down as soon as I said, oh, is this Jacob? And I started following him around, and he had backed off, and I'd had to say, oh, you don't have to be afraid, we can be friends and all this stuff. And he never really bothered me, but for the first couple of months, he would follow me to work, and I was working in a law office, and he would follow me to work, and one day the printer just started printing. I had a printer, and it just started printing and printed off a smiley face, just for no reason. And whenever Jacob was there and he wanted to say hi, he would just print off a smiley face. And there was this lady that I worked with who I don't think she liked me very much. And one day she came in and she goes, Jacob doesn't like me because he printed off a frowny face. He had made her printer go, and it printed off a frowny face. And everybody in the law office was really interested in what Jacob was doing and this and that. And a lot of times I'd be getting ready to leave work, and I'd be going over to the elevator, and all of a sudden the elevator door would open. And, you'd have to call the elevator for it to be there, and it would just be there open and waiting for me. And I think that was Jacob. And I had another, and I found, so I was having really weird, unusual experiences at the beginning of when I moved into that house. Like one experience, I was studying Tai Chi, and I would go to class on Saturdays, and I didn't have a car at the time. I was riding the bus, and I'd gone to Tai Chi class. I'd ridden the bus, and I'd gone to class, and I was going back to the bus stop, and it was about 4 blocks away from the Tai Chi studio, and I was headed to the bus stop, and I was not quite there, and the bus that I was supposed to catch came around the corner and turned and stopped at the bus stop, and it was early. And I thought, oh no, it's early, and what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And so I started like running to catch up. And, you know, whoever heard of the bus being early? Like, buses are never early. They're always late, if anything. And so I'm like running up to the bus stop, and right as I got to it, the bus was taking off, and I thought, oh no, I missed my bus, and it's a Saturday, and I have to wait another hour for the next bus. And the bus pulled out, and it turned, and it disappeared. I swear, it just like poof, poof, just like a cloud, it just disappeared. And I'm like, what am I going to do? You know, it's, okay, I've got to go to the mall or something and wait. And so, right as that happened, I looked around, and here comes the bus. From around the corner, there's a different bus. It comes, and it pulls up at the bus stop. And that was the bus. The same bus, but it was just the different one. So, that was weird. I also had weird stuff happen with my P.O. box while I was living in Scranton, you know, and I don't know. I think I had a doppelganger. People would stop me in the mall and swear that they knew me and that they worked with me, and I didn't know them. And then someone closed my P.O. box, and I had to get it reopened. It was crazy. It was crazy times. But the weirdest stuff that happened with the ghost was if it didn't like people who I had over there, it would make noise and stuff. And I had this one client, one hypnosis client. She had come for an interview, and her husband came with her for the first time, and I offered like a free meet and greet type thing to get to know each other. And so she and her husband were there for about 20 minutes, and then they left. And then a few days later, the owner of the house comes knocking on my door, and he goes, oh, did you have a client the other day? And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, you know, I'm like, when? And he said, oh, like Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock or whatever. And I go, yeah. How come? He goes, well, Jacob didn't like him. I said, oh, what happened? And he said that he had been upstairs in one of the apartments. His son was living in one of the apartments and was up there doing some work. And the stereo came on full blast, and they had a tire hung from the ceiling on a big chain, and it was swinging back and forth during the time that my client was there. And then another time, I was dating this guy, and we broke up, and then we were thinking about getting back together, and we were on the phone one night, and I was in the living room on the phone, and I heard this whomp, 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 whomp noise going on in the kitchen. And what it was in the kitchen there was this fluorescent light that had this plastic lens covering over it, and it was just going up and down, and that was Jacob making the thing go up and down because he didn't want me to get back together with the guy. So I wasn't ever scared of him. I talked to him, and he said that he was there to protect the house and its inhabitants. I don't recommend people really talking to ghosts that much, but I might feel differently about having Jacob around now. I mean, I wasn't ever afraid, and I felt like he was protecting us, but it was kind of unnerving to think that, you're always being watched. But now, if I see stuff like that going on in people's houses, or, when I'm working with them, we get them out. We do binding and casting out. But, that was then, this is now. So, is that you, Peter? Guess 9? Lost the internet. Anyway, that's my ghost story. Okay. Oh, Peter, guess 10. Thanks for coming back. Thank you. Thanks for coming back. That was my big ghost story. What do y'all want to talk about next? We've got about 45 minutes left. Did you like the ghost story? There's stuff around. And it's all in how you handle it. Yeah, it was a break from the doom and gloom, guess 9. I had a lot of weird experiences when I was going through my ET contact. Oh, question. Oh, okay. Okay, I'll get to these in the order that they came in. Are there things about underground bases or cities that Richard Souter told me that I'm not able to tell us? No, no, we haven't had private conversation. I mean, we have had private conversations, but he doesn't really know any more than what he's telling, or he hasn't told me. He's had a lot of dreams recently about nuclear detonations, he thinks, in the United States in multiple cities. And he thinks it's going to be false flag and that it's going to be our government doing it. Yeah, Richard pretty much puts it out in his books and in his talks. And like I said, he doesn't want to talk anymore. I've contacted some other people, same thing. They don't want to talk anymore. I want to be at ground zero. I really don't want to live through all this crap. Guess 9, you say that you're in a constant state of anxiety. Do you want to elaborate on that? And maybe we can talk through that? Right. Saying Guy McPherson says he's done too. And saying that 9/11 when 9/11 happened, the subways in New York City shut down for a year. I wasn't aware of that. Oh, yeah, Richard was saying that there are tunnels connecting all those bases. I think that it's worldwide. Yeah. I really think that it's worldwide. Yeah, it's easy to get stressed out and have a lot of anxiety about everything with North Korea, hurricane, economic collapse. But we just have to live in the moment and just take it for what it is. Do y'all want to talk a little bit about prepping? How to do some prepping? Yeah, I'm 63. I was pretty stressed, but I'm just pretty mellow about it now. Some people want to prep and others don't. I think there are some things that you really, really want to have on hand just in case. I need to get a drink of water. I've been talking nonstop without a drink of water here. I was hoping people would call in so we could talk too. But the chat is fine. There are certain things that you really do need to have on hand, like bottled water, obviously. Okay, that's okay, guest 9. You don't have to call in. Just take a deep breath and know that you're safe here. And, you can express whatever you want to here. You're safe here. I have a Berkey water filter. The little travel thing, it will filter about a gallon of water, and it takes out all kinds of stuff. And you can also get these little bottles that have the filter in it, and you pour the water in there, and it will filter out. Also, another good thing to have is MMS, and you can purify water with that. That's actually used to purify pools and spas and things like that to keep algae and bacteria from growing. I have a lot of that on hand. So even if your water isn't completely pure, if you run it through a filter and then you put a drop of MMS, activated MMS, then you're good to go. You're about as good to go as you can get to get the pure water. But I'm telling you, Houston, the water situation is going to be very bad. It's going to be very bad because all the water is polluted. There's toxic chemicals. I was hearing that we're 2 million pounds of pollutants released in the area. The toxic water, biological weapons labs. You got graveyards, of course, cemeteries that are underwater. I don't know if any of the graves are going to be coming up. Then you've got the chemical plant that exploded, and then you've got the nuclear power plant down there, and nuclear waste, and I really don't see how they're going to recover. I really see that this is the beginning. And they're even turning away people with boats that are trying to get in and rescue people. So, eventually it just comes to the point where You've just got to make your peace with God and get ready to go. And realize that, this is the stage, and the dominoes have been set up, and they're starting to fall. And it's been predicted. It was predicted in the Bible, and it's been predicted a lot of other places that in the end times there would be great cataclysms and everything. And in the last message that I got in, from the Arcturians, it said that a lot of people were going to be dying because of the cataclysms. And the last message I got in from God was the same thing. And that we have to go within and find our own spiritual connection to God and be, we got to make our peace. We got to make our peace. If we have any unfinished relationships, we need to make our peace and be ready to go. And all we're doing is dropping the bodysuit anyway. And a lot of people are going to be getting out of harm's way, really. I mean, it's kind of weird to say that, but I believe the restrainer hand has been removed and the darkness has descended upon the earth. And it started with the eclipse. It was like the harbinger and the forerunner of everything. And Satan is going to try and grab as many souls as he can. So it's time now for everyone to get right with God and right with Jesus. And once you do that, you can be in the middle of the most horrific thing possible, but you can have a deep peace. You can have a deep peace knowing that deep inside spiritually you're okay. But and a lot of people have fear about dying, and that's because we don't know what's out there. It's the unknown. But, if you are able to get to that deep place of peace, to where you're okay mentally and emotionally, no matter what, that's the place you want to get. That's the place you want to get, because otherwise it is hard, because you keep trying and trying and trying, and we can't make a difference. We can't make a difference. We can make a difference in each other's lives, but as far as changing what's happening and changing where we're headed, as far as the world and the economic stuff and abrupt climate change and everything, I mean, it's coming down. It's coming down. That's all there is to it. So the sooner you can accept it and realize that we're not in charge, we're not in control, and we're okay with it, whatever happens, then the better off you're going to be. And the calmer you're going to be. So back to prepping. Food, canned food is good. And food that's in plastic, obviously. And if it's not in plastic, you can put it in plastic bins, just in case you do have a flood or something. Because say you've got a whole bunch of beans and rice and stuff, and you just got bags on the floor, and you have a flood, then that's ruined. and they were talking about, like, the grocery stores and stuff, people looting down in the Houston area, and all that stuff is going to be rotted. Everything that's in a box will just be rotted, and so that's, like, no good. You also need a can opener, an old-timey can opener that's not electric. That's a must-have. You need some lighters so you can have light and so you can start a fire. Other things that are good to have that I've stocked up on are alcohol, hydrogen peroxide. These are all in plastic containers that will last. Band-Aids, bandages, stuff like that. Antibiotic ointment. Let's see, what else? Dried foods are good. I dry my own and put them in plastic baggies and label them as to the month and the year that I did them. And you can dry all kinds of things with a food dehydrator if you have time to do that. You can make raisins from grapes. You can make prunes from plums. You can dry peaches, pears, apples, tomatoes, zucchini, carrots, potatoes, sweet potatoes and white potatoes, butternut squash. I've dried all that stuff. You can dry your herbs and put those in there. Bananas, banana chips, those are really good. So those are good things to have. You can buy packages of nuts, trail mix, things like that to have on hand. Juices. You can also get juices like in these jars or in plastic bottles. And if you run out of water, the juice will at least be liquid. All different kinds of juices, and they'll stay good for a long time. You can buy bulk sugar. That'll stay good. Salt, sea salt, baking soda, oils, grains like I don't eat wheat anymore, but I eat a lot of quinoa. You can get quinoa that'll last. Beans of all different kinds. All your dry goods, dry foods, those will last for a long time. But some people don't want to prep, and that's okay too. But those are just some basics because, if you're not able to go anywhere and the gas stations are shut down, you can't go get gas, and the stores are shut down, and, you could at least survive for a while, with some food like that. Okay, I'm reading in the chat room. Peter says that if you're totally spiritually realized, then death is the gateway home. Yeah, I agree. He says this is one of the great mysteries of life, how the soul is different from the material body. I agree. And how the soul is eternally related to God. These are the two great mysteries of spiritual life, that we should have been taught these things since we were children, but we've been cheated our whole life. And, Peter, we don't come in to this life with an instruction book. It's like you learn as you go. And Some people get it and some people don't. Most people don't ever get it. But you're exactly right. And the body is the interface here from God into this reality. And if we can get away from our ego and let go of our ego and our identities enough, then we realize that it's God expressing through us. That's what I've realized. And that's what it's all about, is God is having this experience. God is expressing through us. And the body is the temple. And the cleaner the body is, the more pure it is, and the less worried, and the less anxious, and the more we can just go within and drop our own identity and our own hopes and dreams and wishes and everything and attune to that God mind, then we step aside and allow God to express through us. And that's kind of what I've realized, and that's what it's all about. So if you can get to that point, then you realize that, we're not in control anyway. So there's no use in worrying. I mean, yeah, you can plan, and you can, I'm not saying get rid of emotions. Emotions are part of being human, but realize that that's part of the body. Emotions are not part of the spirit, they're part of the body. But emotions can also trigger you into doing good action. So it's a fine line, and it's a balance we have to get to. Is there anything else y'all want to talk about? We've been at this for an hour and a half now. We don't have to go the whole 2 hours. If anybody would like to call in and we could chat, the number is 724-444-7444. I'm going to read some more things that I had prepared. I'm reading off of the Abrupt Climate Change Facebook page. Beaumont, Texas in crisis after city loses water supply indefinitely. That's not good. And it shows people lined up outside of Walmart all night long waiting to buy water. And there's climate chaos across America. Harvey releases 2 million pounds of pollutants from refineries and plants. I'm just reading headlines. 2 explosions reported at flooded Crosby chemical plant in Houston. And some people think that Harvey could have been engineered. What do y'all think about that? I'll put the link in there. This is the Abrupt Climate Change Facebook page that I was reading. They have a lot of good headlines. I follow that quite a bit. I heard a video today that Dane Wigington had done. You know who he is. He talks about geoengineering, and he was saying that he felt like it was geoengineered because there were microwave stations to the south of Houston that were activated during the hurricane, and it like kept it in a certain place rather than it going on land and breaking up. And then there was microwave station north of Houston that activated it too. That just kept it in one place, just churning over and over and over, so it would dump so much rain and devastate the area. So it could be geoengineered. And the geoengineering is definitely messing with Mother Earth and with our bodies. And, we're getting a lot of heavy metals in our bodies because of all this geoengineering, and that's all toxic. And the more clean and pure we can be, the better off we're going to be. So the cleaner your diet, if you could do a cleanse or a heavy metal cleanse, get away from processed foods, get away from addictive behaviors, things like that. Here's a story. I don't know if y'all have heard this one. About Burning Man. I live in Reno, and Burning Man is out here. Burning Man started this week. Nearby wildfire bringing smoky haze to Burning Man. And this was on the road on the way out to Black Rock Desert, where Burning Man sets up every year. It says a wildfire burning at about 40 miles southwest of Nevada's Black Rock Desert closed the main road into the Burning Man Festival overnight Wednesday. Arriving burners were redirected through Alturas, California to access the festival through the backside. Now that's a long way to go. Highway 447 reopened on Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. when lines of containment were established along the route, but the Tohockum 2 fire continues to impact the 70,000-person gathering. If you go to the Burning Man web camera, you can see that there's definitely smoke out there, says Marvin Boyd, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Reno. They're not in the thickest part of the smoke, but it's still blowing in that area. And it scorched 30,000 acres of short grass and brush near Pyramid Lake. It's still burning. It's not contained yet. It says with the new day, we have to see what the fire is going to do. They're actively fighting it, but it's not contained yet. I heard the news today, and it's not contained. So it could threaten Burning Man. But, I wouldn't want to be out there. I'm glad I'm here. See. And the sea ice is melting. Okay, here we go. Changing the mood a little bit. Giant craters in Canada's melting permafrost impacting climate change. So Canada has permafrost that's melting. Alaska has permafrost that's melting. Alaska is in big trouble. I've seen pictures of roads and stuff just falling apart and houses falling down and stuff because, you know, all this stuff has been built on the permafrost. And with the temperatures rising, now the permafrost is starting to melt. And as that happens, then methane is being released as well. Here's this article. I'll give you all the link so you can go look at that with me if you want. Researchers are investigating large craters of melting permafrost in northern Canada, which they say are both a consequence of climate change and a contributing factor. Scientists say warming temperatures are melting a previously frozen layer under the surface at Fort McPherson. NWT frozen organisms in that surface are now being exposed to the air, producing carbon dioxide and contributing to the greenhouse effect. Fort McPherson. How funny. That's coincidental, isn't it? Says, it scares me. Permafrost thawing Canadian Arctic sign of global trend. Permafrost thaw faster than previously thought, new study says. We know there is twice as much carbon locked up in permafrost as there is carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, says Suzanne Tank, a researcher and assistant professor at the University of Alberta. So certainly there is the potential for this carbon, if it's released as carbon dioxide, to have a really huge effect on greenhouse gases and climate warming. Scientists are looking to collect samples from the craters to gain more information about the problem, which they call a sleeping giant. There is this uncertainty associated with what this sleeping giant is going to look like, says Tank. That's the article. Yeah, no kidding. Sleeping giant. And I just keep seeing picture after picture of just everything flooded in Houston. The Arkema plant, chemical plant that had 2 explosions in the water. I was listening to Dana Durnford this morning. Do y'all know who he is? His website is The Nuclear Proctologist, and he has a live show every morning. He's the guy that has gone out on his little boat and gone up and down the west coast of British Columbia and the northern West Pacific, and has been documenting the loss of ocean life and marine life and foliage and everything since Fukushima because of the radiation. And so he has this live show every morning, and he was talking about this nuclear plant down in Houston and how there are like 150 people camped out there, workers camped out there. They have not shut the plant down yet. It's running full steam, and he thinks that it might have already melted down, and they're just not going to say anything about it. But mold is a big thing. You know, once all the water goes down, you know, and those people think that they're going to live in those houses, you know, good luck with that. Mold will kill you. I've had my problems with moldy apartments and mold places I've lived, and it will kill you. And not everybody is sensitive to it, but it's a certain genetic marker that makes you sensitive to mold. And once you're exposed to it, it's like you get really sick and you get these allergies that just won't go away, and it's really hard to recover from it. And a lot of people with Lyme disease have mold allergies, and I know I've got the mold allergies. So they think they're just going to go in and rebuild. There's going to be so much mold growing down there, and it's so hot and humid, they won't ever be able to get rid of it. They're going to have to I don't think there's any sense in rebuilding. I think they need to just move on. So, does anyone have any other comments or questions? Because I'd like to kind of wrap this up now. We've been on here for almost 2 hours. I have some guests here in the chat room. I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I appreciate you participating here in the chat room with me. I hope you enjoyed the show. And, toxic mold is a nightmare. It is. My cat died. I had to put my cat to sleep. He had immune issues anyway from this vaccination that I gave him that I shouldn't have. He nearly died from that. But the mold and the fleas that did him in. And the mold, I got affected by it too. I lived in a moldy apartment for 4 years before I moved to this place where I'm at now, and I'm just now starting to really recover. And I think I've got Lyme disease that was never diagnosed. And I just got started on a protocol, a Lyme protocol, and I'm starting to feel better. And so I'm on the upswing, but I'm just here until I'm not here, doing what I can. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Valhalla. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I think I'd like to close tonight with a prayer. Oh, Peter, you say you've got chronic pain that no doctor can help you with for 10 years now. Said it could be from toxic mold from the past. Yeah, and the chronic pain can come from toxins in your system. I attended an online chronic Lyme disease summit, and a lot of people who have Lyme disease also have like chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and all this stuff. And once they get on a good protocol, like things really start turning around for them, and start getting energy, and the dizziness goes away, and mental fog goes away, and stuff like that. But exercise is important, but you don't want to overdo it. But you do want to be doing some exercise every day, and you want to be on a good diet. So if you'll email me through my website, just contact me at margoshealingcorner.com, and just go to my Contact Margo form, send me an email, and I'll send you some information on that, okay? I'm going to put my website in. So go to my website and, definitely send me an email, and I can communicate with you on some things you can do, and I can send you a link to the protocol that I just got started on, and it seems to be helping. Okay, dear God, thank you for the opportunity for us to gather tonight and to share and support each other during these dark times. We pray for the safety of all the people and the animals in the Houston area. We pray for those who have died. We pray for their souls. We pray for you to minister to them. And we pray for you to help all the people who are in distress and who are being displaced. Give them guidance. Go ahead and touch their hearts and let them know that they're not alone and that Jesus is here for them and that you're here for them and the ministering angels are here for them, and help guide them through these dark times to peace and safety, and give us peace of mind and give us understanding and discernment, and protect us in these dark days and keep us from being pulled off track. And whenever temptations come along, help us to know the difference between what you want us to do and guide us in our highest good. We ask that you are able to come through and express through us so that we can be a shining light and a beacon for others in these end times. And bless this radio show and bless everyone listening, whether they're listening on a podcast or listening live, and touch them and keep them safe. And until next time, I pray the blood of Jesus over every one of you and keep you safe. All of these things we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I think we had a good first show. So I hope to see everyone next week. Tell everybody about the show. You're welcome. You're welcome, Guest 9. Tell everyone about the show, and, whoever wants to call in next time, we can do that. You're welcome, Peter. Thank you for coming. I so appreciate you guys. Oh, Valhalla, you're Guest 9. Thank you, Valhalla. I so appreciate you being here. And, we just have to hang together. We have to hang together and support each other. Okay? I'm getting tired, so I'm going to sign off for now. And I'll see you guys next week. Is Thursday night good for you guys? I forgot to ask. Is this time good? I forgot to ask. Is the time good for you guys? Is Thursday at 9 p.m.? Okay. All right. Well, I'll schedule it for next week. Same time, same station, and I'll put up announcements again, and we'll carry on. Okay. Thanks so much. God bless all of you, and until next week, I'll be keeping you in my prayers. Okay? Good night.